The Valley Green Vegan Podcast for Born Again Eaters is brought to you by Valley Green Naturals, a natural ingredient manufacturing company producing head-to-toe personal care products for clean living. Stay tuned to the end of this podcast for a special offer from Valley Green Naturals just for our listeners. Hello, and welcome to Valley Green Vegan, the podcast for Born Again Eaters. I'm Cindy.
And I'm Amberlee.
And we're two veggie eaters coming to you from two different continents. Amberlee's a former chef who has worked in restaurants and venues here in the States, in Virginia and Washington, D.C., and in Australia, in Sydney and towns in New South Wales. She has been a plant-based eater for a long time now. How many years would you say, Amberlee?
I'd say since 2012, 2013, so what, 10, 12 years?
Yeah, long time. And as for myself, I'm a newly minted vegan. My husband and I went, I like to say cold tofurkey overnight this past January. And we've just never looked back. It's been 4 months. And as of this podcast, we celebrated our 4-month veganversary just last week. And we have never felt better. And my reasons for going to a plant-based diet were for health. I just really wanted to feel better after going through some cancer treatments. And I read that plant-based diets can reduce inflammation in the body. So I can tell you even before the 4-month mark, within the first week, I was feeling 100% better. The results have been absolutely phenomenal. To date, this is a bonus because I'm not even trying to do this, but to date, I've lost 17 pounds. So it's literally changed my life. And then, of course, when I told Amberlee about it, she was like, "Go, Mom. Yeah, this is awesome." So it's been really great that our daughter was not only a chef, but also has been eating plant-based for years. So, Amberlee, why don't you talk a little bit about why and how you eventually began eating plant-based and what your experiences has been in creating and preparing tasty meals that never get boring, because I've had your food and it's completely awesome. And I would imagine that being a chef has really helped, but what advice can you give to other people that would inspire them down a new and different culinary road?
Well, let's see. Over time, I evolved my diet into a plant-based diet as the vegetarian, vegan, plant-based industry evolved. So I did my diet over time. When I was younger, I developed food sensitivities. I was seen by a specialist to find out what the problem was, why I was having so much trouble with food I used to be able to tolerate, from immunologists to gastroenterologists. They finally came to the conclusion that it may be additives, preservatives that were the issue. And because there are so many, it was pretty impossible to test for. So over time and a lot of trial and error, I developed a knowledge of what I can and cannot tolerate. I also gained an understanding of nutritional knowledge and how my body worked and performed. I paid a lot of attention to how I functioned when I would eat certain foods. Growing up, I learned how to cook from my dad, and later learning how to cook in the kitchen, I gained basic knowledge and experience, which led me to becoming a chef professionally. So many years spent cooking in kitchens next to head chefs and learning the science behind cooking allowed me to play with that basic knowledge. And with the growing health food industry at the time, I was able to find substitutes which enabled me to experiment more in the kitchen. So instead of your orthodox cooking, I drifted towards more of a Willy Wonka and experimenting with the science of food, flavor, and nutrition to gain the same results, but in a very unorthodox way. So my advice to others would be to listen to your body when you eat food and pay attention to the way you feel, physically, emotionally, cognitively, and fine-tune your diet to what makes your body perform the most efficiently. Our bodies are like high-performance cars, machines. You don't put low-grade fuel in a high-performance engine, do you?
Right.
The car won't run at its highest efficiency. If you do, it'll drag, lag, peak here and there, and eventually have engine issues earlier than it should. Just like our bodies do if you put, the processed foods, sugars, all those nasties in there.
Animal
So,
products, dairy.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, that are pumped full of those the medications that they give to animals.
Hormones.
Like, yes, steroids. I have a penicillin and cephalosporin allergy, so I think that actually contributed to some of my food sensitivities.
Yep.
And as everybody knows, we use a lot of the same medications when it comes to treating sicknesses.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, learning about the nutritional part of it has been something that I have taken a deep dive. I mean, I really am so interested in making sure that I'm fueling our bodies. So for Dad and I, to be able to do this and live very healthful lives, it's been really important for me to learn as much as I can. Once we got rid of all the meats, fish, dairy, everything basically from our diets, and I started to read as much as I possibly could, watch documentaries, listen to podcasts, and whatever little bits of information I could gather. And of course, talking to you, I've learned a tremendous amount. And it's been very helpful. I mean, there's documentaries that are available on YouTube and on Netflix. The ones that I'm thinking of, and I'll list them down in the show description. But one of my favorites is called What the Health, as in healthy. That's on Netflix. There's another one that's just so well done. It's called Eating You Alive. And I found that one on YouTube. It's a full 2-hour movie. Forks Over Knives is on YouTube. Plant-Based Nation.
That's a good one.
Yeah, Forks Over Knives is excellent. There's a book that I actually got on Audible, and I was listening to it every morning in the shower and every time I get in my car. And it's by Dr. Michael Greger. And I mean, people who are already vegans and listening to this, I'm sure know about all these sources. But if you haven't checked this book out, it is so, so awesome. It's called How Not to Die. And he has another one called How Not to Diet. But read the other one first. Read How Not to Die first. It is so good. He goes through every single disease, every, cancer, and which foods are the best foods to help prevent these things. And he breaks it down, to like the cellular level and why this works. So it's not just, oh, this works. And, a lot of the stuff that's out there is not evidence-based. And he uses evidence-based material. And it's just fascinating. Dr. Neil Barnard's book, Your Body in Balance, it goes through, your hormonal balance and what kind of problems and imbalance can cause for you, and in disease and breast cancer, uterine cancer, things like that, endometriosis. He touches on that. So those are just 2 fantastic books that I would recommend right off the bat. And then there's a podcast that I know I've told Amberlee about, and I don't know if you've heard it yet or not, but The Exam Room.
No, not yet.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yes.
It's one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. They produce it every Wednesday. The group is here in our area, in the Washington, D.C. area. It's called the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And if you just search podcasts on whatever platform you listen to, just search The Exam Room. That's the name of it. And it's hosted by Chuck Carroll, who used to weigh 420 pounds. He was 5'6", was in his 20s, and didn't think he was going to make it to his 30s. And he has quite a story to tell. This amazing story. Yeah. And he's got some really good guests on there, too. He often has Dr. Barnard on there to talk about different things in nutrition, and they have a doctor's mailbag that they discuss. And it's just a great podcast. I love it. And so then the other thing that my husband and I have done, and was telling Amberlee about this, was we were looking for what they call lifestyle doctors. So they're not quacks. This is a real thing. They're actually certified MDs and nurse practitioners and physician's assistants who have studied plant-based living and are very supportive of it. And I know, Amberlee, you've experienced this a little bit too, when you try to talk to a doctor about a plant-based diet. And like I proudly told my doctor, oh, I switched to vegan. I'm on a plant-based diet now to get my cholesterol down and help with the inflammation from the cancer treatments. And she just stared at me. Like,
Well, there's actually like that bit of an absence there with it. My GP definitely, but my psychiatrist was like, yes, I completely agree with you.
Oh.
Like that Yes, yes.
Fantastic.
So there is there
Yeah.
is a bit of a disconnection there
Yeah,
between.
yeah, there is for sure. And Dad had the same thing happen with his doctor. He told her very proudly, I'm now a vegan, and she did the same thing. It was like they don't have any training in nutrition in medical school, and a lot of them have this old school thinking that, well, where are you going to get your protein from? You have to eat meat, you have to eat eggs, and that's just absolutely not true. I mean, if you really study this, it doesn't take much to do a little bit of reading and listen to some YouTube videos or watch YouTube and listen to some podcasts. You will learn a lot very, very quickly. And it's really interesting. So Dr. Barnard's place in Washington, D.C., it's called the Barnard Medical Center. They actually have doctors there who specialize. They're GPs, internists, and they specialize in guiding people and taking care of people who are on plant-based diets. So we're switching our GP to the Barnard Medical Center, and that's where we're going to be going. It's in DC, so it's an hour away, but well worth it.
It's worth the trip.
It is. It is for sure. So I know one of the things I wanted to talk about was in Australia, when you first moved there, it's been like 14 years, right?
Yes, 14 years.
Yeah. I remember when you first got there, you were talking about how difficult it was to find foods that you could eat. I mean, like veganism was pretty much unheard of there, right?
Yes, it was. So mainly, there were a lot of the vegetarian industry was quite hot, but there was a high population. But over time, you saw a fast-growing population of people, particularly with the younger generation, as they've grown up over years with the growing concern of the environment and the effect that animal farming has had on the environment.
Yep.
So it's caused more of a demand for this healthy, clean eating, eco-friendly, vegan, plant-based lifestyle. So in particular, over the last 5 years, I'll just say, I've seen an incredible increase of supply and demand for these once upon a time called special diets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the other thing too that I've noticed, at least here, and I think you probably suffer it even more over there, is the costs of everything have gone up so substantially over the past few years, really since the pandemic is how the time frame that I've noticed. But it's got to be especially tough living with a plant-based diet on a budget in Australia. So what kind of tips do you have for people who really want to eat a healthier diet but find it unaffordable?
Oh, well, we all know that making everything from scratch isn't always the cheapest, right. But I have found that going to farmers markets, buying your produce there can at times save money and be quite light on the pocket. Mm-hmm. Buying veggies that are in season, so get to know your seasonal veggies and herbs. Growing your own even helps, in particular fresh herbs. Fresh herbs are always expensive to buy at the grocery store. So if you have the space, set up a little herb garden or even better, a little veggie patch. Mm-hmm. Plus, gardening is always good for the soul, and there's nothing better than having grown your own and then making yummy dish at home for everyone to enjoy.
That is so true. Yeah. So true. Yeah, we've got our garden started out back. Dad's raised out there, and we've got tomatoes and lettuce, and he's got his peas all strung up now, and the beans. It's awesome. I can't wait for everything to be ready to harvest. It's fantastic. But anyway, as you were saying, do you have any other tips for saving some money?
Yes, educate yourself on how to store your veggies so they last. That makes a huge difference on your pocketbook. And wastage. Wastage is such a huge thing with me. Like, I'm really in particular about that.
Yeah, I find myself constantly looking in the refrigerator and going through my bins that, where I've got the lettuce stored and the veggie stored and everything. And I'm like, ooh, I got to make this and I got to use this. And I am going to the store more often, obviously, because I'm buying fresh stuff. It's not processed foods anymore. So I do have to go to the store more often, but I'm the same. I that's the one thing that I have discovered since turning vegan is the wastage. It just doesn't happen anymore in this house. And the other thing too, you were mentioning storing. We found some really great glass containers, and we no longer use plastic containers to store our stuff. Glass is It is
Yes.
it. I mean, that is the way to store and keep your stuff fresh for way longer. I mean, I can put blueberries into a big glass dish in there that has the sealed top on it, and then those blueberries will stay fresh for a month.
You should see my glass jar collection that I have collected from recycling glass jars over time. Like, I have a whole drawer, and that's what I keep my vegetables in.
Yep.
Like, I'll cut up some carrots or celery for Paul, because I'm not a big fan of celery. But
Paul, for those listening, Paul is her roommate, longtime friend and roommate.
But some of those things, like, you can keep them in the glass jar, the glass container, store them in water, in fresh cold water. Those keep the vegetables, like carrots, celery, for example. They keep them nice and fresh, and they last a lot longer.
Yeah. And I know some people actually put almost like a flower vase on their counter, with fresh water every day, and they keep their herbs in there, and they can just clip
Yes.
I keep basil right above the sink. I mean, because I'm using basil all the time, and I've actually got it planted. And so I've got, and I clip off the basil every day and use some of that. So that's pretty handy, because you're right. Herbs are extremely expensive if you try to buy them in the store. And it is really easy to grow them at home, even if you don't have a garden. It's just, I mean, like I said, put them on your countertop, or like you said, pick some up at the farmer's market and put them in a little vase, and you've got it. I mean,
seasonal vegetables too.
Yes.
Seasonal.
Yes, exactly.
That saves on money.
Yeah, that's something we have to talk about in future podcasts, because I'm going to learn a lot from you about seasonal vegan cooking. Absolutely. But I do know for myself that there are days that I really do love to prepare and cook big meals for a really good lunch or dinner. But there are a lot of other times that I just want to put together something really quick and simple that still has, some nutrition to it, or nutrient dense. And the one thing that I've discovered is if I prepare some things ahead of time and put them in the freezer, or better yet, I'll make a great big meal, and then there's always leftovers, the next day. So we'll put them in those glass dishes that I was talking about. And like I made the vegan shepherd's pie that's on our blog. I made that just the other night, and it was just 3 of us here eating it. So there was an awful lot left over, and we had a fantastic lunch the next day. And what's really funny about this is too, when you're using a lot of herbs, and you're not using a lot of salt and things like that, sometimes when it sits overnight in the fridge, it picks up even more flavor. And that's what we found when I reheated the vegan shepherd's pie. Oh my gosh, it was so good the next day. And of course, it will keep even for a few days. So if you cook a bigger meal, even though there's a lot more preparation involved with, vegetarian and vegan cooking, there's a lot more cutting, a lot more prep. But if you cook a big enough meal, you are going to have leftovers that are going to be nutrient dense, really good for you, that you can just pop in the microwave and reheat, the next day. Okay, so speaking of the blog, by the way, the shepherd's pie that I mentioned is on our new Valley Green website recipe blog. It is brand new. There aren't a lot of recipes on there yet, but we're updating it regularly. And the goal is to eventually provide hundreds of creative and tasty dishes. And since this is our first podcast, Amberlee, you get the honors of suggesting a recipe that's one of your all-time favorites. So what would it be?
The recipe I've chosen is a recipe of my own, actually, and it is my teriyaki tofu rice paper rolls. Not only is it my favorite, but it's also quite popular amongst my friends. You can find it at our Valley Green Vegan blog.
Awesome. Well, I saw the picture of it, and I'm so excited. I can't wait to try it myself. So, okay then. I think that's all the time that we have for today. And thank you so much for listening, my born-again eater friends. And please do subscribe to our podcast and our blog that's on our website. It is valleygreenvegan.com. And we'll put those links below. And I'll also, of course, put the links down there for the documentaries and the books and the podcasts that I mentioned. And don't forget to check out and try Amberlee's suggested recipe. I think it's probably going to be awesome. And you'll find that on our blog as well. And we look forward to hearing from you guys to see if you tried it and if you liked it. So until next time, I'm Cindy.
I'm Amberlee.
And we're wishing you happy wellness and happy cooking. Everybody take care. Hey guys, just a little postscript I wanted to mention. Many of us who are looking to live a clean and natural lifestyle are always on the lookout to avoid toxins in our daily lives. Even before I was diagnosed for cancer in 2017, I always tried to eat a healthy diet of organic foods and use clean ingredient products, cleaning materials, things like that. I was so into the natural and organic lifestyle that I actually started a company that produces clean ingredient body care products. That was 13 years ago, and my company, Valley Green Naturals, is still going really strong today. So what started as a soap making hobby in my farmhouse kitchen all those years ago has actually grown into a fairly good sized company, and we have over 30 products, and we make everything from soaps to facial care to deodorants that are all natural, body lotions and bug repellents even. Everything is made with plant-derived natural ingredients. So if you're looking to reduce the toxins in your personal care products, I just thought I would mention valleygreennaturals.com. And for anyone listening to this podcast, you can use promo code HEALTHY at checkout to receive a 15% discount off your first order. So that's valleygreennaturals with an S.com, or you can simply click the link in the episode description below.